creativity. One of the things that we as humans grasp at to distinguish ourselves as above AI, because as long as they can't make music or their own art, we can still be relevant as a species. Oh. In 2019, the guys at Suzuki Studios cemented the end of the human race with their wonderful waifu vending machine at Anime Expo. The world's first AI and fastest commission artist was introduced throughout the duration of the convention. With 4 quick clicks, the waifu vending machine would algorithmically generate your dream waifu. Or at least something close. The guys at Suzuki were definitely onto something, if it was not abundantly clear when they became the main attraction and the talk of Artist Alley. But that was almost like 3 years ago. What's next for Suzuki? Well, what's the next logical step when you have a ton of waifus and a bunch of MIT mathematicians and game designers? Make a gacha game, of course. That's right. The creators of that funny AI waifu making website created a new gacha game, Aeromancer. And this could just be the honeymoon period speaking to me, but I think it's really cool. Aeromancer is very hard to pin down as a game, because it's just very familiar but also very different at the same time. It falls for the same trappings of other modern gacha game designs that I abhor. For example, the single premium currency banner gacha system. Call me jaded, call me a boomer, but honestly I really miss the 4 passive resource timer system of Cancel and Girls Frontline. But at the same time, there's just a bunch of cool new things and features that can only be done because the guys who made the game are also the guys who made Waifu Lab. The best feature being that you can add your own characters to Aeromancer. The search for the gacha game waifu that inevitably plagues the mind when starting a new game doesn't exist, as you're guaranteed to get a waifu that you like. Well, guaranteed as long as you create or find a QR code. And since every character is created from the same AI learning algorithm, Aeromancer also has this cool semi-gacha feature where you can combine characters to generate a new design based on both of them. You know, like an alternate skin. It's honestly a really cool and creative way to do cosmetics, as you know, all these characters don't really exist, and they don't have a human artist that can design more skins for them. However, the level of detail and quality of these skins can vary greatly. And as a guy who spends a lot of time refreshing on the pose section of waifu labs, I do wish there was a reroll form option, as I usually feel like there's some imperfections that could be smoothed out by a different roll. And the gameplay. So many times when looking at gacha games, the gameplay always seems to be like an afterthought waste of time that you just trudge through so you can get more currencies to roll more gacha. Gacha games with interesting and good gameplay do exist. I mean, look at Girls Frontline or Azure Lane, or the king of modern gachas themselves, Genshin. Aeromancer brings in a gameplay system that I personally haven't seen before, making combat take place in some kind of 3x3 sliding tile puzzle, where you're trying to get your characters into adjacent squares that other characters are pointing to deal damage. But at the same time, you're trying to avoid enemy attacks and obstacles, as they will cause damage to your characters if they're on certain parts of the grid, or may obstruct the grid altogether, creating a fun dance of trying to rake up the highest combo you can to deal a ton of damage while dodging enemy attacks. In between rounds of comboing and dodging, you're able to use your character's abilities to do a variety of things, from summoning clones or familiars, healing your team, dealing damage to the enemy, or just throwing fish. These abilities either help move along combat by allowing you to do more damage, or replenish and protect your character's health, allowing you to make a few more mistakes before having them die and completely changing your combo route. As you can see from the video playing, I'm not the best at this. Gameplay does require a brainwave and a pulse. You can't really press auto and AFK your way to victory. I know, it's the worst thing ever, actually having to play a game? Aeromancer rewards players for having good planning and good execution. If you're smart, you can just build a team that has an easy combo loop that takes almost no movement, assuming you get the combo parts from the gacha. But as combos are your main source of damage, the game is notably easier when you use that brain of yours to create an easy combo path for yourself. But Aeromancer also rewards fast decision making and mechanical prowess, because your combo path might not always be clear, so being able to maneuver around is extremely important if you want to actually be able to clear levels. This creates a fun, player expressive heavy gameplay loop that I find extremely rewarding. The UI is pretty clean, simple but effective. I mean, there isn't much to say about it as it's not really needed most of the time. The UI is just kind of a thing that needs to be good, but people don't really care if it's good, but also can't be bad since then everyone cares. People only really recognize how good UI is when it's something completely crazy or super aesthetic. Speaking of aesthetics, Aeromancer seems to know what it's doing in that department when it comes to its music and background design, invoking kawaii pop with its music and techie nostalgic backgrounds and fights. The setting of Aeromancer seems to be a mix of a space opera, classic post-rance Japanese fantasy, and the corporate world. A story kind of exists, but like most gachas, no one is gonna read it or care until a lot comes out, and either becomes super dark and gritty, or a meme, assuming people even read it at all. From what I've read, the main story just seems kind of nonsensical with the characters going to places just because to go to places. The side plot between the player and the blue Karo seems interesting and looks like it can go somewhere, but we're forced to stick with the broke space witch Karos and her old friend Fig and the annoying black cat. Can I also take this moment to get across how much I hate Black Cat? I get the story's told in a text format, but do we really have to have Black Cat speak like this? It's so obnoxious and annoying. It makes me irrationally angry for no reason. It makes it hard to read and all around is just like, but yeah, the story's just kind of there. Probably just check back in a year and see if it's good. The most I can give is that they did that doomer thing of, we went to college, but we can't use the knowledge and degrees because of the job market, which I assume is the real life situation of the devs. While I do thoroughly enjoy Aeromancer, there's just a few things I have a problem with. One of them being that the recommended level scaling is kind of crazy compared to its contemporaries. Most gachas are really bad when it comes to scaling content over time, and eventually you hit a brick wall, forcing you to grind or use the XP resources that you have accumulated to progress. I mean, not a problem right now in the early game, but if the trend continues like this, we might get into a girl's frontline situation where a ton of mid to late game grinding is required. And let me say this, while I love the combat system, there's no way I'm gonna grind with it. My small brain and boomer mechanical skill and reflexes can barely manage playing levels normally. If I had to make it a job and grind, I would rather drop the game. The creative banner system is extremely cool and is definitely a highlight, but new players should have a way to be off the global timer for their first banner, as it's really annoying not being able to roll for the characters you made because you made your account at a bad time of the week, and now you have to wait a few days until you can actually spend your gems. Another thing, I'm not too sure about the long-term viability of the game's normal gacha system. I could be completely wrong here, but why would I roll for a random character with no story and personality when I could roll for my own characters with no personality and story? Stats and abilities between imported characters and base ones doesn't even matter since apparently you can just infinite reroll them. So why do generic banners even exist? At least if I do the dumb option of rolling in the generic banner in other games, I have a couple slightly below 1% chances of getting something I do want, rather than the 0% chance in Aeromancer. The generic banner might as well not exist, to an even higher degree than other games of the same genre. The lack of personality given to our imports and the generics are also a slight cause of concern for the long term. The motivation to play these games are character driven. Yes, everyone's gonna have their waifu day one and play the game for a couple days, but after that, there's no other characters to latch onto to keep you invested into playing the game. I can't find my own SX or MDR or UI or Sei Shonagon meme character to get invested in. Iconic side characters are effective to increasing player count, as I have played games like Azurland and FGO for the sole purpose of trying to get my SX and Sei. Instead of deriving player retention to established characters, Aeromancer is trying to live purely off the novelty of your own custom characters being in a gacha game. To be fair, we already get a bit of characterization with the one-word personality type that imported characters are given upon generation. But why not have some AI generated story be available as well? People normally love that stuff. I guess it might not fit some people's perfect image of their waifu or whatever, but I don't know, make it toggleable or something. It doesn't even need to be that deep. People usually get attached to characters due to a single voice line or the 2-sentence profile they get in the character index. A whole AI generated backstory would place our random generated characters on a level above traditional gacha characters. And once the novelty of Waifu Labs tech is gone, what's even left of the game? While hardcore fans will stick around for the gameplay and story, the vast majority of casual waifu-based players won't really have anything left to keep them invested. Also, my extremely shitty bottom-of-the-line trash phone can't run the game at a playable frame rate when I get into a battle. I literally can't do my turn if I'm not on an emulator. Not really a big deal, I don't really expect optimization at a level where my burner throwaway phone can run the game, but just putting that out there. And is the game even out? Because everywhere but the Play Store says pre-register. But you can install and play the game, and we already went through our first event, so someone should fix that. Aeromancer is a wonder of modern technology, showing what AI learning can do with its amazing computer-generated art and innovative systems that come with it. The tech side isn't the only highlight of the game, however. It has a rare case of a gacha game having an interesting and fresh new take on gameplay as a whole, with its RPG reaction test grid-based combat. However, I do have some concerns for the future of Aeromancer, but I'm sure that the smart MIT minds behind the game will be able to smoothen things out. Overall, Aeromancer is a pretty cool experience that should be checked out just for the tech novelty alone. I mean, I bet you already did the same thing with Waifu Labs.